do up in Washington. Very briefly, I grew up right down Kirby Road here. Just go down the second entrance to Blue Lake Forest, take left, third house on the left, 4330 Willow Hill. Right across the street from Phyllis Abraham's, then 2 doors down from Marshall Stanley. But this is my home, Blue Lake High School, Rice University. I went to law school at the University of Texas. Made what I think was a smart decision, but decided that I didn't want to practice law, and so I joined the Navy. I spent a little under 10 years in the Navy on active duty as a pilot. I flew P-3s, which is a land-based submarine hunting aircraft. I haven't controlled an airplane on an aircraft there, but I have one on plane without traps and catapult shots. Ever get a chance to do that? Go. It is awesome. But ended up, the Navy sent me to Washington for what ended up being my last 3 years of active duty. Got out after my daughter Kate, who is now, stand up Kate. Kate is 11, and she's my oldest child. I have a son, Grant, who's 8, and got out of the Navy about a year after Kate was born because I wanted to spend a little more time with her than a service career would allow. I was very fortunate that I worked in the Senate Liaison Office, that our senior senator at that time, a gentleman named Phil Brown, offered me a job and asked me to stay up in Washington and work as his defense policy advisor. I did that for about 5 years, and when he left Congress in November of 2002, his successor, our current senator, John Cornyn, asked me to be his chief of staff. And I did that. I worked in that capacity for about 4.5 years until last summer when we moved back home to run for Congress. And the next question that people sort of ask is, well, why would you come back and run for Congress? You seem to be, things seem to be going well for you up there. Why would you come back and take all this on? And the answer, she's not going to stand up again because I've embarrassed her, but it's Kate and Grant, my little boy. And I'm just concerned about their future and the impact of the federal government, the potential negative impacts the federal government is going to have in their future. I mean, they run the risk of being the first generation in American history that's collectively less well off than the preceding generation. And that is solely due to the policies of the federal government, particularly the lack of fiscal discipline we've seen over the last 50 years up in Washington. Their generation has a bill coming that unless we in Congress find the courage to stand up and tackle the tough issues, we're going to drop that bag on them, and they're going to have a completely different style of life, quality of life than we've had, and that's wrong. Issues I'm happy to talk about, and this is very, if somebody wants to say something, just raise your hand up and go. Very, very informal. But clearly, the biggest issue that people want to talk about in the race right now is energy. And we need to become incredibly less dependent on, as independent as possible on foreign oil. We need to drill in the places where God has given the resources that God has given our country. That means the Alaskan National Wildlife Refuge, that means the Outer Continental Shelf, that means the oil shale in Colorado, Utah, Wyoming, that means the oil sands up in North Dakota. Wherever we can drill safely in an environmentally friendly manner, we need to do that. While we're doing that, we also need to expand alternative sources of energy. We have a 300-year supply of coal that can power our electric power, again, 300 years. We need to develop those resources, keep working on clean coal technology and bring that nuclear power. It's an emission-free source of power. We need to build more nuclear power plants. And while we're doing this, we need to keep working on all the alternatives out there. Solar, wind, geothermal, biomass, all the things you hear as potential sources of energy for us in the future. The federal government also has to play the traditional role of the federal government in research and development of new technologies, funding that research and development. What we can't do, we can't make the mistake that the government made with corn-based ethanol, in which the government not only decided which technology to fund the research and development, but also decided which technology was going to be brought to market. And as we've seen from the ethanol, the corn-based ethanol subsidies, it hasn't done anything to make us energy independent It's distorted the corn prices in the food market. Now, it was in the livestock market, sort of the feed market before, but now it's actually starting to affect us. You go to Randall's, Kroger, HEB, you're seeing higher prices because of lack of energy independence, because of the corn-based ethanol subsidies. Not the solution for America's future. And I think we need to end them as soon as possible. In terms of, the other, couple other big issues, taxes and spending. I mean, real easy one here. Everybody in this room is taxed too much because our government spends too much. We need to get control of federal spending, and if we don't do it, it's going to keep pointing back to Kate, and I know I'll embarrass you before it's over, but her generation is going to pay for that. The first thing we need to do is make sure that the Republican tax cuts of 2001 are extended and made permanent. It's hard to argue the success of those tax cuts. Since they've been passed, our economy has basically been in a growth mode. We've had some ups and downs, but it's an incredible thing when you think about some of the things we faced over that period. We had the attacks of September 11th. We've been fighting a war against terror. It's costing our country about $200 billion a year. And over the last couple of months now, we've seen energy prices spike up. And despite all of that, the American economy has continued to move and continued to be strong. That's because of the tax cuts. It's what everybody in this room knows. If you give the American people their money and let them decide how to spend it, they'll do a better job than a federal bureaucrat or a congressman in Washington every time. And we need to make sure that those tax cuts are extended and made permanent. Just for those of you who don't know, if Congress does not act, they will expire automatically. That means $900 billion will flow back into the federal treasury, and that's something that my opponent has voted in support of. He voted in support of the budget last year that will allow that money to flow back and take it from the people and give it back to the government to spend. The other issue I'd like to talk about very briefly is national security, war on terror. We're making progress in Iraq, and I think as long as we are making progress there, it's important that we keep the troops on the ground and do not pull back prematurely. If you've had an opportunity to talk to one of our incredible people who've gone over there and served our country, I'd encourage you, if you see them at the airport in one of the camouflage uniforms or what have you, just certainly thank them for their service, let them know how much you care, tell them you love them, and ask them if you get a chance to talk to them. Just ask them about what's happening over there on the ground. Every serviceman I've talked to over the last year, without fail, especially the ones who've been there for multiple tours, say that we are making progress. Things were much different the second and third time I was there than they were the first time. It's going to be tough. It is tough work there, but again, we're making progress. The surge is working, and we can't pull back prematurely. And then the third issue, let's see.